Welcome to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into college football. Welcome into the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington, and tonight we're going to be taking more of a college football approach than a Devy approach to the pod. We're going to be talking about some player prop lines and talking about the top 25 AP coaches poll as well. Unfortunately, Aaron Wilcox was not able to join us tonight because he is dealing with some stuff at home, but we do have Andy Starr. However, he is having some technical difficulties, so hopefully he's with us. I'm not 100% sure if he will be or if he's back. We lost him right as we started the show. It looks like we got him back. Can we hear you, Andy? And I cannot hear Andy, so we'll get him back on and whenever he can, whenever he figures out his mic. But I will be here for the time being, and we'll talk about what we're going to be talking about tonight. Like I said, it's going to be more of a college football focus. We're going to be getting into the top 25 AP poll, coaches poll. I thought it was kind of interesting because there's definitely some teams that, you know, whether you agree or disagree or whatever, but they're either going to be all in or all out. And it seems like there's teams that are going to be competing against each other. And maybe that's every year. But it's like, you know, hey, are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it? That kind of thing. And if one team makes it, that means the other one literally can't. So, you know, we'll have to dive into all that and figure that out. And then we have the player props for the QBs, and we're talking about yardage, you know, how much they're going to be throwing for. And some of them were really interesting with the lines that Vegas set. So we will have to see. But Andy, we're still working on it. You got a mic? No, we got we're going to be working with this. Hopefully, we got it figured out earlier. I don't know what's going on with the computers the past couple weeks, but we'll figure it all out. I guess I will just keep on talking. So, well, actually, why don't I go ahead and just start us off with? Oh wait, I think I might be able to hear Andy.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Good Lord. No, you know what's crazy is like as soon as because we had some issues with the stream coming into this, as soon as you re-upped it again, it just booted me. And then I've had like something going on with the microphone today, which again, I don't think it's my fault. It's just something with Riverside, but
yeah, it doesn't like these mics for some reason.
Yeah, and I hate to tell you, John, because I didn't want to like refresh it again because clearly something wasn't wrong. But I don't think this recording is going to be in the cloud afterwards. So apologies in advance.
Well, it'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Hey, we're live. We got people in the chat. We got Cole saying W stream. So, you know, at least we're live. We know that the people can hear us now. Now that Andy is here with us. So I was gonna jump into the AP poll, but now that we can actually hear you, Andy, how are you doing tonight?
I was stressed there for a second, but now I'm doing better. You know, I would hate for John to have to talk for an hour, even though I know he would probably love that. But you know, it's good to take a little bit of pressure off my good friend. But yeah, I mean, it's great. Summer's almost over, but that's good news for football fans because that means football's almost here.
That's very true. We were getting very close. We were actually going to be doing our hot takes pod tonight, but like I said, Aaron couldn't make it for good reasons. Nothing bad. He just couldn't make it, and I'm like, look, we're not doing the hot takes. But that's our like favorite podcast of the year. Like, we're not doing the hot takes pod without without all three of us, so, and we've had some amazing calls on that pod. I had the Jordan Tyson one a couple of years ago. Andy had the Mekhi Hughes most overrated player ever, and then Aaron had the Darian Mensah top 5 QB. I mean, I don't know if anyone, any pod, any company, I don't know if any company can go to bat with those three takes just by themselves. And it's not like those are the only three takes that have ever hit. And Andy's back to having issues, so maybe I shouldn't be bragging, as we can't even get our audio right. All right. Well, enough about that. Yeah. So we were going to be talking. I still can't hear Andy, but we're going to be doing the hot takes pod. Hopefully that'll be next week. That one's always a lot of fun. We'll be doing that. Going over all of our hot takes for the season, and then like Andy said, we really only have a few weeks until we have college football, and we'll be doing this. We're doing all of our C2C supplemental drafts, getting them all done right now. Andy and I have one starting up tomorrow, the campus2canton.com league of record that we have both won the championship in. So Devy Devotional owns C2C, you know that. But yeah, like I said, while we're waiting for Andy to reconnect here or whatever, we'll go ahead and just get into this top 25 poll, because I thought it was really interesting with the hold on, let me bring us up too. I don't want to get rid of us completely, although maybe. Oh, I can hear you again, I think.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to mute myself. So if you hear background noise like my dog groaning
it'll
like
be
she's
fine.
about to die, just don't even worry about that. She's fine. She's just going to sleep.
I will edit it out if it becomes a problem. So don't worry about that. But yeah, just don't mute. We're good now. Let's dive in to the coaches poll. What jumps out to you here? We got your top 25. You want to go through at least the top 10, and then maybe let us know what jumps out at you.
Yeah. So top 10, you've got your blue bloods: Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame. That's your top 5 in that order. And then you got Indiana, Miami, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss, 6 through 10. Out of the top 5, I would say the biggest surprise for me is probably Georgia. I think that they're going to have the hardest path to keep that ranking. Not saying it's not deserved right now, but they're going to be playing in the SEC. You're going to have to get through eventually. Texas. You also have Alabama, who I would hope is taking a step forward. They show up at number 11 on this poll, so they're playing a lot of top 25 teams, obviously being in the SEC, and I don't know that they were necessarily that great a year ago. I know it's another year with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, so another year under the belt should improve their chances. But at the end of the day, like, none of these top 5 teams are like too surprising, right? Like, I think we all expect to see all 5 of them in the college football playoff. I think what is interesting, and I noticed as I was like looking at all top 5 here, all 5 of those teams are returning their quarterback from last season, which you can't say for many of the other teams, really. So that kind of makes sense. Obviously continuity is going to improve any team. Just having that, ability to build off the season before, and quarterback is obviously the most important position on the field. So those guys are all returning their starting quarterback from a season ago. And I think aside from Notre Dame, all of them were playoff teams, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check myself there. I'm not a terribly prolific college football fan, as you can see, when it comes to like who made the playoff or not. But Notre Dame was obviously a fringe team a season ago, and they felt like they got snubbed for Miami, who eventually made the championship game. But all these teams were obviously very successful a year ago, and they're returning their quarterback. A lot of production on offense for a lot of them, so it makes sense. In the 6 through 10, I think Indiana is the one that shocks me the most. I know you and I were talking before the show. Like, yes, Signetti just seems to have like the magic touch. He's just gonna win 10 games no matter what. I just don't know if that can always continue. He's bringing in Josh Hoover to be his quarterback. You and I don't like Josh Hoover as a quarterback. Is he better than Curtis Rourke? Probably, but he's not better than Mendoza was a season ago. And there's other teams on this list. Obviously, I like Darian Mensah and Miami better than Indiana. I think Trinidad Chambliss, another team that's bringing a quarterback back. I think Ole Miss brings a lot of production on on offense back. They're probably somebody that I like better than Indiana, and they're sitting at 10. Um, and Texas A&M's just got so much money that always expect them to be in the mix. So Indiana's the one that out of this top 10 that I think might be a little bit on the higher end of the rating of where they probably should be.
So I'm with you, and I'm not a big Josh Hoover fan, so that like I'm not. I don't think that Indiana's just gonna like step right back into where they were before and be amazing and go win a championship. But I do wonder if have you looked at Indiana's have you looked at Indiana's schedule, because it is unbelievable how easy. Oh, sorry. Andy was chatting with me in the background. He muted himself by accident, so hopefully he'll be able to come back from this. But have you looked, Andy, at the schedule for some of these teams? Like I was looking at Oregon's schedule, and I'm like, I want to hate on Oregon because I don't think Dante Moore's as good as people they think he is. He's a fine college QB. I don't think DeCorian Moore is as amazing as people think he is. I don't think Jamari Johnson's going to be, a league saving or game changing tight end. I think they're all fine. But you start going up against Ohio State's and whoever else, and I think they're going to lose. So I really don't like Oregon being at 2. But then you go look at Oregon's schedule. The only team they play that really has any kind of bearing whatsoever is Ohio State. If somehow they can pull out that game, like they're almost guaranteed to be 1 overall. I mean, look, listen to the schedule: Boise State, Oklahoma State, Portland State, USC. Okay, that's a decent game, but like, does anyone expect that USC's gonna go beat Oregon this year? Probably not. I don't think that. I don't know what the odds. We can go look at. I don't know what the odds would be on that game, but okay, so maybe that one's a little bit tougher. Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, Ohio State in Week 10, Michigan Week 11, and then Michigan State Week 12, Washington Week 13. Please tell me where these like crazy games are that we're having all these issues with, that like Oregon isn't going to be able to compete even if you don't necessarily love the team. And then going into Indiana, it's not much different. Like they're not playing. They're playing a very similar schedule. They play Ohio State October 17th, and they play USC November 14th. They play a lot of the same teams: Michigan, Howard, North Texas. I mean, like I know everyone says Big Ten is like the Big Ten is this like amazing up and coming conference, but honestly, there's like 3 good teams, and they don't even have to all play each other.
No, I hear what you're saying. Like, Oregon's really not going to get tested throughout the year. Um, USC, I think, like you said, they're a team that could kind of surprise people. Again, another team that's returning their starting quarterback. Um, Quite a bit of their offensive production, I would say, with the running back coming back. Both, 2 of their top rushers coming back, as well as Tino Kynes, who's a receiver we're starting a little bit excited about. But Michigan, I don't think anyone's really shaking in their boots about them. They're coming in at this poll at number 16. Iowa's on this poll at number 22, which I don't think I quite understand either. So I get what you're saying. Like the Big Ten, despite winning the NCAA, the college football playoff. What is it? Three years in a row now.
Yeah.
It's a very top heavy league, so
And this isn't me trying to hate on the Big Ten or being a SEC homer or anything, because I think it's the same thing with the SEC. Like, you have your top heavy teams. You have like 3 or 4 teams that are going to be amazing, and then you have your teams that are rarely going to do anything. So this isn't me trying to compare the two or say one's better than the other. I'm just saying these teams, Oregon, Indiana, whoever, like you were saying, they have to play Iowa, who is or like Iowa's, in the mix there, but you wouldn't even necessarily say that they're great. They don't even have to play Iowa. Like it'd be one thing if they had to play Iowa, but they don't.
yeah. I mean, I think Oregon's going to have an easy path to the playoff, and maybe that's has to do with why the coaches poll has them at 2, because they're just looking at their schedule and saying, well, who's going to beat them besides the number 1 team in the country? And I don't know that there's a good answer for it. But you're right. Like the SEC, they'll try to tell you that they're the best league, top to bottom, and I think we know that that's not always true either, because the South Carolinas and what used to be Vanderbilts of the world were kind of pushovers outside of the place, but they're seeming to. At least Vanderbilt has sort of improved on themselves, but there's always going to be those teams towards the bottom that aren't necessarily, on the same level as the Alabamas and the Georgias and, to some extent, well, even like the Tennessees and LSUs of the world. Florida was kind of that way for a while under Billy Napier. They were just not a good team, but yeah, I don't know. It's tough because now with this expanded playoff, like the regular season games just seem to mean less and less, right? Like all you're going to have to do really is just win 10 games and then you should be in, which a lot of these teams that we're looking at right now in this poll should be able to win 10 games, with the exception of maybe like, Iowa. I think Clemson, who we haven't talked about yet, down there at 23, is going to really struggle to get to 10 wins, just because we don't really know what their quarterback situation is going to look like. We don't know how healthy their receiving core is going to be, who's going to be their running back. A lot of question marks there. So, and I know that's a team that's kind of built on their defense, or at least they have been in the past. So, I can't really speak to that, I guess, what that's going to look like this year. But just in the last 2 or 3 years, Clemson has not been somebody that I think has been feared even in their own conference. So,
No, but listen to this. So I was trying to say, like, the next thing I was going to move on to was, okay, who outside of the top 10 could we realistically see moving up into the top 10 by the end of the year, or even possibly winning the whole damn thing? And of course, I kind of start with LSU. Like, is it at 13? What do they have? And then I go look at their schedule, and remember that schedule I just said for Oregon, and very similar schedule for Indiana. I haven't looked at Ohio State's schedule, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it's very similar. And then listen to this schedule for LSU: Clemson week 1, LA Tech week 2, Ole Miss week 3, Texas A&M week 4. Okay, Ole Miss is at 10 on this list. Texas A&M is at 8 on this list. McNeese week 5, Mississippi State week 7. I don't think they're on here, but they're probably not that far off from a top 25 team, I wouldn't imagine. And Auburn, Alabama week 10, Texas week 11, the number 4 ranked team, Tennessee week 12, and Arkansas week 13. Like, holy crap, they have a gauntlet to get through just to make it to the playoffs, much less anything else. Like, that is wild. I don't know that I'm even the biggest LSU fan. Like, I know people, love the coach, love everything about it, but seeing that schedule, I almost have to bet against them, right?
Yeah, and that's like this is the first year of Lane Kiffin. They've got a new QB with Sam Levitt. Is he going to stay healthy? How quickly are they going to have to potentially pivot to Hussein Longstreet, who's also a new QB on that team? The receiving core is very new with Jace Brown, Winston Watkins, who does follow his coach, Lane Kiffin. But to me, like when I'm looking at an SEC team that maybe makes that leap, I like Tennessee to be a little bit more of a favorite because their schedule is a little bit more forgiving, I'll say. I mean, they still have to play Texas. They still have to play Alabama. They obviously play LSU. Um, but I think most of those games are at home, right? So they're home with Texas, they're home with Alabama, they're home at LSU, or home against LSU, and then their biggest away test is Texas A&M, which again, is Marcel Reed really like this ominous figure that's gonna stand in the way of anybody winning a game? I don't think so. I know Faison Brandon is seemingly the presumed starter, and that can cause some issues. Having a freshman quarterback. Maybe it's George McIntyre, but either way, like very young, inexperienced QB play. But I don't think they're going to have to worry about it because the rest of their offense is so experienced in the skill positions. You've got Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, and then Deshaun Bishop, who I think is probably the most underrated running back in the country right now. So that offense is going to be humming. It doesn't really matter who's going to be at quarterback. They're gonna have success just based on the success of the guys around him. So I kind of like Tennessee, who's sitting at 18 right now, to potentially make that leap up into the top 10 or 12.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the truth of the matter is if you look at a team like LSU with that tough of a schedule, that means somebody else has to take a step forward. It's hard to say with a true freshman like you were saying, like to truly count on it. But we have to look at these teams and say like who could possibly do it. I mean, I guess we're talking about teams outside of the top 10, but obviously Texas A&M, Ole Miss, they have a little more of veterans on the roster and things going their way, which is obviously why they're higher. I would have to look at their schedules, but yeah, I do like the Tennessee call out. I mean, they obviously have great players, at least offensively. We don't really pay attention to the defensive side that much, but offensively, like we know that they have some solid players and some great players. So if they can hit the schedule just right and play the right teams at home, then it definitely could happen. I'm not really, like you said, I'm not really worried about Iowa, Clemson. Like even. I mean, Houston's kind of interesting. Like they're probably a team that could at least at the very least stay in the top 25 the entire year. Maybe finish at like 18 or something like that. I don't think they're going to be knocking on any doors as far as being like top 12 or anything. But we could easily see them staying up there. But like Mizzou, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Mizzou's going to be a top 25 team when it's all said and done. But I Utah, I don't know. Like none of these teams really excite me. Maybe that's just how college football is now. Like I don't know. Maybe we're just in a different world where it's like, you used to be like, oh, we got this team that's gonna be, sneaky this year, and now it's like, well, it's not sneaky because of NIL and the transfer portal. Nothing's sneaky. We know who the good teams are, and it's, do you have a difficult schedule or do you have an easy schedule? And with Oregon, we can say you're not even, to me at least, you're not even that amazing of a team, but you have a ridiculously easy schedule. And then you look at a team like LSU and you go, okay, you got a solid team. Definitely questions at the quarterback level and everything. But then you run one of the most difficult schedules in all of college football. Yeah, you're probably not going to be. You're probably going to have 3 losses when it's all said and done. Like, are you even going to make the playoffs?
Yeah. Houston was a good call out because they do have their quarterback coming back, Connor Wigman. They do have one of the top receivers in the Big 12, Amari Thomas, coming back. They bring in Mekhi Hughes, who we've already talked about as the most overrated running back in college football, but he's probably better than what Dean Connors was for them last year, and Dean Connors still managed to run for like 1,000 yards on this team. So, yeah, I think the Big 12 is weird, right? Because Texas Tech is obviously the highest ranked team from that conference here. They've had all sorts of tumultuous happenings over the offseason with the Brendan Sorsby thing. Now you got Will Hammond coming in as the starting quarterback. Then you've got BYU in the Big 12 there. Bear Bachmeier year 2. that'll be interesting to see, if they can improve because they were a pretty decent team last year too. I think they did get up to about 10 wins. Um, and then the other teams from the Big 12, SMU, I don't know that they're going to be, frightening anybody. And then Utah as well. Devin Dampier obviously coming back. But, aside from who's their running back? Is it Wayshawn Parker? So Utah's got some
Yeah.
pieces too. But it's going to be, I think between those four teams, not counting SMU, so like between Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Houston, I think you're going to see one of those teams emerge, and I think most of them play each other at some point in the season. So whoever like comes out on the top of that series obviously is going to make the college football playoff, but with this expanded playoff, I think you're going to probably see two, maybe even three of those teams in there when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Houston there because I think Texas Tech is being propped up from like what they were supposed to be and not what they actually are. I mean, even Sorsby was an overrated QB to begin with, but he was a solid college QB and he was a veteran QB. Will Hammond hasn't done much of anything. Like we have no idea who he is, and he's coming off a pretty major injury. So, like I feel like they're just kind of like, oh yeah, put them at 12, and then when the games actually start, they're like, oh, we probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The only other team that's on this list who I don't think we really touched on too much was Michigan. There's three Big Ten teams really: Michigan, Penn State, and Washington. They're all in between 16 and 20.
Yep.
I don't think Michigan's really going to change too much from what we saw a year ago. Like they're just going to will their way to about an 8-win season at least. You might let I just don't think that they have the juice to take down like an Oregon or an Ohio State. And I believe they start the season against Oklahoma, which that's going to be a really tough game for them to come away with. So I think they play all three of those teams too. I don't have the Michigan schedule in front of me, but you're going to have to win at least one of those games for Michigan if you're going to win, if you're going to get to 10 wins. And I don't think that they have that right now with Bryce Underwood and, just the team that they put together so far. Same thing with Penn State and Washington. Like they're just like the second tier of the Big Ten. I don't think anyone's really afraid to play them. There's just not a lot of juice on offense. Penn State is basically what Iowa State was last year because they're bringing in Matt Campbell to be their coach, who brings over like every player that he had last year over at Iowa State. And then Washington they're an up and coming team, but I still think they're a little bit too young outside of Damon Williams, who's their veteran quarterback. But I just don't think there's enough there for them to make any sort of like big playoff push.
Yeah, like you said with Michigan, at the very least we know that they play all of Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. So like, what are the odds of them doing anything? And I don't see the turnaround being that quick with Penn State. I actually feel much better about Washington than I do about either of those other two teams. Like if I was betting on anyone in that line, well, besides Tennessee, we already called out Tennessee at 18. But if I'm calling out anyone else, it would be Washington. And even then, you're talking about Desmond Roebuck as a sophomore. Obviously they brought in Jaden Lamar as a running back, but he's been okay at Oregon. Like we can't say he's a proven player or anything like that. And Damon Williams is a fine college QB. He's not anyone that's like elevating players or taking the players to another level. So I don't love Washington, but if you're talking about versus Michigan or Penn State, yeah, give me that bet all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Well, I'm also a proponent of just like not putting hardly any stock into these preseason polls because at the end of the day they don't mean anything. But it's still fun to talk about, and we're a few weeks away from the start of the season, so all of these answers will.
Remember last year when who was it? Texas and Miami lost in week 1, wasn't it? and then or something two. I think it was Texas and like some other team. Maybe was it Miami or Notre Dame or whoever it was lost in week one, and like all of a sudden the top 10 was completely like in flux, and I
Yeah.
could easily see it being a very similar kind of thing. Although I don't know if we have. We need to look at the schedule and see, do we have any of those crazy games? You know, like last year we had Texas versus Ohio State in week one. You know, like do we have any of those kind of games this year? I know we looked at the week zero schedule last week and we played the game, but I don't think it looks like Andy's bringing up the week one schedule
Well,
now.
I know that Michigan plays Oklahoma, but I'm pretty sure that's week 2, because Michigan opens the season against Western Michigan. That is. Um, as far as like top 10 matchups, I can't even tell right now because the only thing that's been released so far is the coaches poll, and like Google will only put numbers in front of players based on their AP poll ranking, which hasn't been released yet. But I'm just trying to go through quickly here to see if there's like anything that sticks out. But like
Yeah, I'm not seeing too much here. We got yeah, I was trying to
Miami
say. I mean,
versus
UNC,
Stanford.
TCU, obviously not not anything special. Um,
Oregon versus Boise State, maybe potentially something, but probably Oregon wins that game easily. Um, yeah, I don't see anything too crazy. Clemson LSU, which we talked about earlier.
oh, that's right.
So
Yep.
so that'll be a big week 1 matchup. But Wisconsin Notre Dame, don't sleep on my Badgers. Abu Sama, Coles, what's his
Abu
name?
Sama.
Abu Samo and the guy from Old Dominion. Who did they get? Who's that quarterback? The guy who runs
Oh,
like crazy.
oh
Colton or
man,
I can't think of his name. Sorry.
I can't either. Oh, that's too funny. All right, well, that's probably enough about that. But yeah, I don't know that we're gonna have the crazy changes in the top 25 in like week one or week two. I think we'll be pretty well set there. But the top 25 changes so much; it's unbelievable. But Andy, putting you on the spot here, choose one play or one team out of this top 25 that is winning it all. You don't get to cheat. You don't get to do any team outside of the top 25.
I think it's an easy call. I think it's going to be Miami. Darian Mensah,
Mm.
Cooper Barkate, Barkat. I don't know how to say his name. Cooper Barkate
Eh,
and
I call it
y-
Barcade.
Mark Fletcher at running back. You've got Malachi Tony, everyone's favorite wide receiver. I think that's the most juiced up offense out of any team on this list. So I'm taking Miami, and I know Ohio State is returning a ton. Jeremiah Smith is the best receiver in college football. Julian Sayin, really good quarterback. Bo Jackson, probably the maybe at least I think he's the best running back in college football right now.
He's not.
So I know, but that's how I feel. I just think like if you're going with the top 4 or 5 pieces on offense, it's Miami right now, and I think Mensa is a little bit better than Julian Sayin. I think Mark Fletcher is right around that same tier as Bo Jackson, and Barkate and Tony is a better top 2 than Jeremiah Smith and whoever ends up being Ohio State's wide receiver 2, whether it's Devin McEwen or Brandon Innes, maybe Chris Henry. I don't know if Chris Henry's going to really shoot out the gates the way Jeremiah Smith did, though.
All right. I feel like we're on very similar wavelengths here, but I'm going to go with a different ACC team, and I'm going to go with Notre Dame here. I think it's going to come down to who wins that Miami Notre Dame game in Week 10, November 7th. That might be a hell of a game. I believe it's in Miami. No, it's in Notre Dame. So yeah, it's in South Bend. So yeah, they. That's I'm okay. now I have my full answer. That's why I'm leaning Notre Dame because the game is in South Bend when they play. And honestly, like you were just saying, like Miami's one of the most well-rounded teams, and they absolutely are. But maybe I wouldn't put up the wide receiver core against Miami, but I would put up every other single position against Miami at Notre Dame. CJ Card, we love just as much, or very similarly to Darian Mensah. The running backs, we would say, as much as we like Mark Fletcher, I bet there's just way too much excitement about Aeneas Williams, Keedron Young, Jonas Walton. There's other players as well, Javian Osborne, and all these. And there's even a guy that I'm forgetting that other people are excited about as well. So there's just too much excitement with that running back core that at least one of them will not break out. It's almost impossible, and we've obviously seen what they've been able to do running wise, rushing wise, and everything. And do not sleep on Jordan Faison. I was mostly kidding, but I obviously had a pretty good hit with Cyrus Allen, calling him out as my sleeper in December, and people have been reposting that and calling me out for saying, hey, thanks for putting me on Cyrus Allen. And I kind of made a joke with the group chat of mine yesterday saying Jordan Faison is the 2027 Cyrus Allen. You heard it here first. So, well, I'm kind of joking, but at the same time, I'm kind of not. Like, it's just these players that go under the radar. They have talent, whether they're dealing with injuries or whatever else. I think this is going to be a big year for Faison, and I think it's going to be a big year for Notre Dame. And I'm looking at their schedule. There's literally not one team that I think you have to worry about at all on Notre Dame's schedule except for Miami. So it's literally, do you beat Miami or do you lose? And I think that'll be like the main difference. But I'm giving Notre Dame. I mean, I guess it's kind of boring at 5, but you chose the number 7 team, so it's not like we're that far off.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Notre Dame doesn't play anybody. Um, Miami stands alone. I guess they have BYU in October. That could potentially be something. And then SMU is another top 25 team that they're playing. According to the coaches poll, I don't think that SMU is a top 25 team, but that's the way it stands right now. But I like that call out. Notre Dame just seems to have a track record with the running back, so I don't think there's anything to be worried there. They're going to be fine. And just the fact that they're not playing anyone, they're probably going to finish the season at most with 1 loss. And, provided they don't have like that one year where they lost to Northern Illinois, something like that happen again. Yeah, they'll finish with 1 loss. They're going to be a top 4 or 5 seed in the playoff, maybe even higher if they do end up beating Miami. So, yeah, I like the call. I think Ohio State is obviously the easy go-to pick, but I think between Miami and Notre Dame, those are some good sleepers. Oh, now you're muted.
I was muted, but I can unmute. I'm okay. No, I actually think, like, I feel worse about Ohio State. Hold on, we keep talking about Ohio State, and there's like the only team that we didn't actually look at their schedule. So let's bring up their schedule really quick because I feel worse about Ohio State this year. Like, they lost so much on defense, and I just got done talking about how we're not a defensive minded show, but I do know how much they lost on defense from that team, and so I'm just sitting here going like, what, how can you lose that much, and you weren't even that close last year, like, as really technically. Like they were in the mix, but I don't know that anyone was like, oh my God, Ohio State's going to run away with this or anything. I'm looking like they play Iowa, they play Illinois. They play Texas week 2. Oh yeah, so there's that game again. Man, I don't know what they were thinking when they made these games. Week 1 last year, week 2 this year. That's not great for them. That'll be a fun game because last year I think we thought it was going to be even a better game than it was, but then Arch was like, man, this defense is freaking wild. And this year the defense isn't quite the same. The Texas offense should be better. if I'm betting it, I would bet on Texas in that game. But I understand it's gonna be close and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't say that it's gonna be a blowout or anything. But then Ohio State has Indiana, USC, Oregon, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Michigan. So while I don't think that all of those teams are unbelievable or anything, once again, you have to get past Oregon, you have to get past Indiana. That by itself is already tough. On top of the fact that you have to get past Texas in week 2, and then after you get that, assuming they get a loss in week 2, let's just put it out there, you already have that stink of we already have one loss, and we're going up against these other teams and stuff, and you start getting that doubt and everything. So I don't really feel all that amazing about Ohio State this year, even though they obviously have very talented players on offense.
Yeah, like I said, I think Indiana is a bit overrated. So that's one of their road games, and then Iowa's another road game. I think they can beat both of those guys relatively easily. And then Oregon, which is I think probably their hardest in conference matchup, they get them at home. So Oregon's gonna have to go across the country to play them, and that obviously plays into Ohio State's favor. The week before, they do have to fly to USC to play. That might be a sneaky game to look out for if you're an Ohio State fan. Like, you're traveling, but you do have a bye week the week before, so they're going to have all sorts of preparation time before they make that journey. So
yeah, that worked out pretty well for them. They had 2 tough-ish games, but they got the bye week in between.
Yeah, so I think the Ohio State schedule kind of plays into their favor. I'm with you. I think Texas does probably beat them at home this year, but looking at the rest of the schedule, I'm confident that they could probably run the table.
All right. Well, I didn't know we were going to do 42 minutes on that, but hey, I'm always here for good discussion. So we also have some QB player props that we wanted to discuss, and we can get into that. I guess I can play this, even though we're not going to play the game, but I can just play my audio of.
Guess the line.
Because I think Andy wanted to kind of try to trick me on some of these players, see if I could guess the line on some player props, some QB passing props, I believe it was.
All right, well that's an interesting idea. I'll give you a line and then 3 players, and you tell me which quarterback you think that line is for.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Ready.
Let's do. This line is 2,875.5 yards, so 2,875.5.
Okay.
And your options are John Mateer, Darian Mensah, or CJ Carr.
John Mateer, Darian Mensah. All right, I'm getting Mateer out of here. I mean, I'm sure he's probably on this list for a reason, and he's probably up there. But I'm so far out on Mateer that I'm just getting him out of there. Mensah, I feel like is right around there. Although I'd really want to have Mensah up in the 3s, like the low 3s or something like that. I'm gonna go with CJ Carr. Would you say 28.75?
Yeah, and you would be right. CJ Carr is 2,875.5. Darian Mensah is 100 yards above that at 29.75.5. And these lines are on FanDuel, by the way. These are like the only player props aside from, I think Underdog did some pick'ems for some player props, but this is the only sports book that has player props, and the only thing they have out right now is passing yards. And then John
we were
Mateer,
hoping to
you're
get
right.
we were hoping to do a whole pod on it, have
Yeah.
running backs, wide receivers, whatever, but there just wasn't enough. There's literally the passing lines out right now.
Right. Yeah, John Mateer, you're right to get him out of the way. He was at 24.75.5, so
Ooh,
quite
that's actually
a bit
lower than I would have expected.
Yeah, I think when I texted these to you guys, I was like, I feel like maybe they're baking in like presumed injuries and like just putting low totals on all these players. But yeah, I'm with you with CJ Carr and Darian Mensah. Like, I want to see. Like, CJ Carr was close to 3,000 yards last year, wasn't he? He was pretty darn close.
Yeah, and obviously they're losing Malachi Fields. I think they lost a couple other players to the transfer portal as well, although those players weren't anything amazing. I think, is Jaden Greathouse finally gone? I know people loved him. Even if he's not, he's never been a factor. Losing Malachi Fields for college purposes, especially, like, is a pretty big deal. People might not give him his flowers in the NFL yet, but for NFL for college purposes, he was a solid wide receiver.
So CJ Carr had 27-41 last year. So all you're
That was his first year
him,
starting.
Yeah, and all you're asking him to do is get another 125 yards. And that includes the Syracuse game last year where he only threw for 49 yards. So assuming CJ Carr stays healthy, I think 28-75 is pretty attainable. And yeah, like, there's no Malachi Fields, but Jordan Faison, I think you can expect him to take a step forward.
Yep.
So, and at the end of the day, I feel like it's CJ Carr more than anything. Like, he's the talent on this team. He's going to make the receivers better. So he's going to get his no matter what. Doesn't matter who he's throwing it to.
But this is the wild one. All right, who would you say is a better quarterback between Darian Mensah or Carson Beck?
I mean, like, seriously? It's Mensah. Like, that's not a question.
Well, Carson Beck on Miami last year. Now, this is through 16 games, and all of these are regular season props, right?
Right. So
so this is through 16 games. So this is obviously excessive. You would only be playing 12 games, so we'd have to take 4 games away here. But Carson Beck had 3,813 passing yards last year on Miami. And he had 3,485 yards the previous year at Georgia through 13 games. So I feel like if we assume that Darian Mensah is better, Malachi Toney's in his second year. They've added even more quality players there. You have your freshman players, Samorian Wingo, Milan Paris, and then you have some other players that have come over as well in the transfer portal that we should be excited about. I really think that there's no reason why Darian Mensah can't be over 3,000 yards. Like, that just seems like one of the easiest bets. The over on, I mean, the only thing you're really combating is injury at that point. And if you're scared of betting because of injuries, you should probably not bet, because I mean, injuries are going to happen. You're going to lose bets because of that were clear cut winners because of an injury. That's why they set these lines, and that's why they do what they do. But getting in at, what did you say, 2,900 for Mensah there, like, getting in at 2,900 is essentially saying, are you healthy or are you not?
Yeah. Darian Mensah, by the way, at Duke last year, threw for 3,900 yards. That does include 2 postseason games. But even without those postseason games where he threw for about 500-ish yards, you're still talking about 3,400 yards on the season. So, better situation, probably a higher volume passing offense, honestly, and better receivers. So, I think 3,000 is his floor, if we're being completely honest. So yeah, he's priced in to go hit the over, no questions asked. I think we can say the same for CJ Carr, and I don't even really want to get into John Mateer. I just wouldn't bet him because I'm not confident that he is going to stay healthy for an entire season.
And I don't want to discount. I couldn't think of his damn name at the time, but I was saying somebody transferred in. It was Cooper Barkate, his teammate from Duke.
Right.
So he already has rapport with this player, a lot of rapport with that player. So add in Malachi Toney as a sophomore, Cooper Barkate as a graduate transfer that that he loves and is already thrown to and everything, and then all the youth and everything that we love there, Mark Fletcher and Gerard Pringle and whoever else. And I mean, you have a guarantee of 3,000 plus yards. Like once again, it would have to be injury, it would have to be something catastrophic, and at that point, you just can't be scared to bet.
Yeah. All right, let me give you three more.
All right.
And I'll give you a line first. We're going to say, let's go a little bit, down the list a little bit, some of these lower totals. 25-25, so 2,525 and a half yards. I'll give you
25.
Connor Wigman, Lenoris Sellers, and CJ Bailey.
Okay.
It's going to be a tough
All right.
one.
I mean, before you even said a name, Connor Wegman popped into my head. So but then you said it first, and so that makes me think that it's not Connor Wegman. But literally before you said a name, Connor Wegman just happened to pop into my head. And then Lenoris Sellers at 2,500. I'm trying to think, what did Lenoris Sellers have last year? He was probably like 2,400 or something like that. And then CJ Bailey is not even a guy that I truly like. I mean, obviously I know his name and everything, but I can't say that I've truly like followed him as far as what his stats are or anything like that. I know that I'm not a fan for NFL purposes or anything like that. I'm just gonna go with my gut. Like Connor Wegman popped in my head. I'm gonna go with Connor Wegman.
It was not Connor Wigman, but he's right there. I picked three guys that are very similar with their totals. Connor Wigman is at 24.75.
Okay.
So 50 yards less. CJ Bailey is at 2,600. So he's actually the highest total on this list. And it was Lenoris Sellers at 25.25.
Dude, do I know ball or do I know ball? I said Lenoris Sellers had 2,400 passing yards last year. He had 2,437 passing yards last year. Holy crap.
Yeah. No.
And see, that's another line. What'd you say his line was?
Sellers, he was the guy,
Yeah.
25-25.
Oh, it was Sellers. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so 25-25. So he already bested 25-25 in his sophomore year at South Carolina. Last year was a pretty down year, but I mean, just go watch the tape. He was running for his life. I think, who sent, I don't know, one of us in the group chat, Aaron, Andy, or I, sent someone had done some like research on QBs. I think it was me. Somebody had done some research on QBs and was finding like the QBs who had the most sacks, but then had avoided the most sacks. And Lenoris Sellers led both categories. So he was sacked the most times, but he had also avoided the most sacks. And it was something crazy, like he had 31 sacks and he avoided 31 sacks or something to that effect. So just think about the fact he should have been sacked like 62 times, and yet he wasn't. That just goes to show how bad the offensive line was, how bad the offense was in general. This year is looking a lot better, and he was already at 24-37 last year. I think 25-25 is an easy bet for me if I'm talking, and that's, somebody that maybe a lot of people aren't betting on. You might be, I mean, obviously the line is the line. I won't say you'll be able to get better odds or anything, but I think that's another one where you're almost just saying, like, is he healthy or is he not? Because if he's healthy, I would say he's probably closer to that 3,000 mark, not 2,500 this year. He's in a much better situation this year than he has been in the past.
I hear what you're saying, but I am a known Lenoris Sellers hater. So I would take the under. I'm going to go ahead and take the under. I think that he got sacked 40 times last year. Like you said, I don't know offensive line stuff. It sounds like you're confident that that's improved from a season ago. But I don't know what else this team has really done to improve. I think their coach has got 1.5 feet out the door right now. So, I'm not putting any stock into that team.
Oh,
far
you're
as
not coming from the guy who just drafted Jaden Sellers yesterday.
okay, well, I'll
Not
take
putting any
stock in
stock in
Jaden
this
Sellers.
team.
That was a good find by you. I'm not gonna. I think Jaden Sellers is probably more valuable of an asset right now than Lenora Sellers. So I'll just say that.
I actually don't
Um,
mind. I don't mind that take. I really don't.
yeah. Um, who was the other guy? Oh, Wigman. So he was a little bit lower at 24.75. That's about what he had last year. Almost to
And
the
now it's his
almost on
second
the
year in
dot.
the offense.
Yeah. Second year in the offense. Amari Thomas, more comfortability there. Leaning
Yep.
the over, but again, health is the main contributing factor of whether or not the under is going to hit.
And health has always been an issue with Connor Wegman. So that's one where you can actually kind of, use that and say, okay, maybe I don't want to bet on 12 games for Connor Wegman. Like last year was the first year
Right.
that he was able to play most, if not all, the games. He played 13. I don't know if he missed any time. I really didn't truly pay attention to him. But he only played 6 games before that, 4 games before that, and 5 games before that in his previous 3 years. So I might lean the under just because it's, even though I think he will progress as a player, he should going into his 5th year. Generally, players do. But, I don't know that I would feel as confident betting that. Lenore Sellers really has no reason to assume injury or anything like that. He really hasn't dealt with any of that kind of stuff. It's just, do you think he can be better this year? And I think he will absolutely be better. I'm not even kidding. I think if you gave me you gave me 2,999.5 yards, I think I would go over.
For Wigman?
For Sellers. I'm sorry. For Lenora
Oh.
Sellers. I went back to
Wait.
Sellers. I know you hate him, but I went back
Wait,
to
wait,
him.
wait, wait. You said 29.99. Wait, give me that line again. You said 29.99.
Okay. So you said Lenora Sellers was at 25.25, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm saying if you set the line, I would still bet it at 2,999.5 yards. I would still bet the over this year.
Okay, we're gonna have to make that bet. I don't know what we're gonna put on the line, but I'm hammering the under. That is, yeah. We'll have to discuss this off the air. We'll have to figure out what the wager is.
Hold on.
what's
All
on
right.
the
So
line.
we've been looking at schedules. Let's look at South Carolina's schedule now. Because I just want to see, am I being crazy here? All right, Kent State, Towson, Mississippi State, South Carroll. Oh wait. Oh. No. Okay. Yep. Okay. It says South Carroll, and I took that as a team, but that's actually South Carolina. Maybe I had too much of this alcohol. So all right, let me try that again.
Carroll.
South Carroll. Like, what the hell is South Carroll? It's South Carolina. All right. Kent State, Towson, Mississippi State, Alabama. Okay, that's a tough one. Although Alabama's not the Alabama of old. Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas A&M. Ooh, okay. This isn't the easiest schedule in the world. Arkansas, Georgia, Clemson. That is not an amazingly easy schedule, but the offense is going to be better, and they're going to have to throw against these teams. I'm sticking with it. I'm calling 3,150 passing yards from Lenore Sellers this year.
In the regular season or
In the
like
regular season. 3,150 passing
Oh my
yards.
God. No. No. I mean, I think 25-25 is probably the line, man. I would say if he stays healthy, I'll give him like 2,600 yards.
All right, that's 262.5 yards per game in a 12 season regular season.
No.
262 passing yards. Yeah. That's easy. We're doing it.
All right. Well, I'm taking the under, and you still won't give me Usmain Chroma for Lenora Sellers in the Devy Sharks League.
I never said I wouldn't. We haven't really discussed it yet. I'm not doing straight up.
Okay, all right.
I'm not doing it straight up. We'll figure something out. I'm okay. I'm okay taking that. I don't. I mean,
All right.
All right. Yeah. No.
Send me an offer.
We'll figure something out. We'll figure something out.
The last thing I was going to say before, because we just passed the hour mark, C.J. Bailey, whose line was like, what, 2,600, I think I said? He actually threw for 3,100 yards last year. That is including a bowl game where he had 220 yards, but still, like, we're talking about 2,900 yards on the season. So if you're looking to bet, I mean, hey, take C.J. Bailey's over. You know, all you need for him is to stay healthy, really.
I was trying to figure out why I don't like him. He has a 3.55% big time throw rate and an 8.8 intended air yards. So you want to talk about, and somehow he's, even with that, it's very Dante Moore-esque. Somehow with that, he still has a high interception rate. And like, how do you, like, Dante Moore throws the ball at a 9.1 intended air yards clip, and yet he has a 3.0% interception rate. And CJ Bailey's not that. Like, how do you throw that many interceptions when you're throwing the ball that short? I just don't understand. It's very Garrett Nussmeier-ish. We'll go for full circle there.
Yeah, I don't get the CJ Bailey hype either. I know that he does, you know, some other things aside from his passing abilities. You know, he can run the ball quite a bit, but not like a stellar runner either. It's not like he was running for 800-900 yards last season. So, and honestly, as a runner, he's kind of a liability with the ball as well. He's had 13 fumbles in his career. So, yeah, I'm not quite there with C.J. Bailey. I think that people just get enamored with like the big body athlete, you know, 6'6" guy who can, you know, zip it. But aside from that, like, what are we really getting? Not the most accurate guy. Certainly not making the big time throws. You know, from an analytics profile, it's just not something to really get too excited about. He would need to take quite a massive step forward. But we're just talking about the betting lines right here. I would take the over. I think that not enough has changed for me to say that he's going to take a massive step back next year.
I like it. Well, you know, as usual, we weren't sure if we'd be able to meet an hour or not, and here we are over the hour. Is there anyone that we truly need to discuss that we haven't talked about on that list yet, or do you have a final three for me to choose between, or anything like that?
Let's just do a really quick one, and
Okay.
These are guys that maybe we do need to talk about a little bit.
Okay.
The line is going to be 3,000 yards even, 3,000 and a
Ooh.
half.
Okay.
We're going to say Drew Mestamaker, Josh Hoover, and how about Jade Maeva. Jade Maeva.
Okay, well, I'm out on Hoover. I refuse to believe that he will get 3,000 passing yards. And Jade Maeva, and I'm sorry, who was the first one?
Mestamaker.
Okay, I do not believe this will happen. Maybe in the Big 12. Okay, I'm going to go with Mestamaker, but I don't know. Like, I feel like Mestamaker's getting way too much love right now. Let's just put it that way. But I'm going with Mestamaker.
It is Mestamaker. I kind of fumbled it by picking my last guy.
Yeah, yeah, that one didn't help too much.
Maeva probably would have held more clout if I delivered it with some gusto. But
Right.
yeah, it is Mestamaker. And then Maeva's at 3,075 and a half yards, and Hoover is at 2,800 and a half yards. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I
Though.
was definitely going
Mestamaker,
the under with Hoover there for 3,000. I mean, 2,800. I guess I can't really truly argue it, but Mestmaker had 4,400 passing yards at North Texas. But if you expect that to continue on in the Big 12, the Big 12 is not the Big 12 of old. But I can't imagine you're going to be anywhere close to 4,400. But at the same time, you're also talking about a 1,400 yard difference, and that's through 14 games. So you're probably a little bit less than that. But let's say like a 1,100 yard difference that you're able to play with there. I don't know that I see enough. Even though I don't necessarily believe in Mestmaker as like some people are, like he's going to be the next big thing. I don't hate the fact that he could actually do some decent stuff in the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's gonna, from a statistics standpoint, take a little bit of a step back. I don't know if it's going to be such a massive step back that he won't even get 3,000 yards. But I guess it remains to be seen. It's just one of those ones that I probably wouldn't bet on. And then between Maeva and Hoover, I think that I'm with you on Hoover being, maybe not necessarily capable of doing 2,800 yards. But at the same time, Cignetti kind of just wills his quarterback to be successful no matter who's there. So as long as it is Hoover that's taking snaps, I think 2,800, if he stays healthy and retains the starting job, then he probably will get that. And then for Jaden Maeva at USC, over 3,075 yards shouldn't be a problem for him either, as long as he stays healthy. He had 3,700 yards. That was including the bowl game last year where he threw for 280. So, you're expecting him to at least replicate what you saw a season ago. So, I would take the over with Maeva as well.
And Maeva's another one that I think is not getting enough love. I've never been the biggest Maeva fan, but like as I look at my rankings and as I see people propping up Mestmaker and Hoover and whoever else, I'm like, you know what? Jaden Maeva is going into his fourth year. He is probably going to throw for somewhere around 3,500 to 4,000 yards, 3,500 to 4,000 yards. And, he probably is going to take a small step forward in his fourth year. That you would think he could at least be. He's already kind of hitting those minimum thresholds that we like. 9.28 adjusted yards per attempt last year. Like that was a huge step forward from year one when he was at 6.81. Now if he takes a step up into 9.5, 9.75 adjusted yards per attempt, things like that. The interception rate is a little higher than we would like to see, but if that comes down slightly, next thing you know, Jaden Maeva's in the mix for next year's draft class, and I don't think he gets talked about nearly enough. I'm not saying he's some stud that I'm going to go out of my way to get, but I feel like he's going to be in the mix next year. And there's not too many people saying, like, when they talk about next year's quarterbacks, they're going to mention Dante Moore, they're going to mention Sam Levitt, they're going to mention whoever else, and they're not going to mention Jaden Maeva, and he might actually be better than both of those guys that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I do like Maeva. He had a really good season last year from an analytics standpoint. Almost 10 yards ADOT, over 9 yards per attempt. It's just the interceptions that need to come down quite a bit.
Yeah, he's got to calm down a bit for sure.
If he can calm down the interceptions, then first round is not out of the conversation for Maeva. So I'm with you. I think Maeva, if he continues to take steps forward, which we've seen, last year, and I don't know if you can call it a step forward, but going from UNLV to then taking over the starting job at USC, even though the stats maybe took a step backward, I think just that, increase in bravado, whatever you want to call it, was kind of a step forward between 2023 and 2024, and he's only growing since then. So if he continues that path, yeah, I think that there's definitely a real possibility that he could be in the first round conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a good example of what I might be thinking happens to Mestmaker. Look at that step forward from UNLV to USC. maybe going to the Big 12 isn't quite the same, but like I don't know that USC really played anyone the past 2 years that we can really say was a true Big 10. Obviously there was like in a transition period there going from the Big 12 to the Big 10. And I don't know that they've played like any amazing teams to the point where we can go, oh my god, like they had the roughest schedule and that kind of thing. But they're obviously playing a lot more than the Mountain West Conference was. And now you can say the Mountain West, to the Big Ten is a giant step up, compared to what Mestamaker's doing going to the Big 12. But I still think there's going to be kind of a learning curve and that kind of thing with Mestamaker, and that's why I'm kind of willing to be out on his line and his and just him in general more than almost to the like John Mateer kind of thing. Like we were in on John Mateer, and then look what happened when he went to Oklahoma. It's just like, ouch. That was a lesson learned there. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm in on Maeva this year. I don't want to I don't want to say no one's talking about him because there's definitely people that like Maeva, but I feel like at this point he's like my sleeper QB. That probably won't be a sleeper when it's all said and done. He'll probably like sneak into the first round or like somewhere in the second or something like that, and then people will be like, "Oh, I've always liked Maeva."
Right.
But all right, well, that's enough of that. We have talked about college football to the extent that we can for tonight. We were hoping we had more lines for you, but we did not. I guess that's kind of weird. I feel like in the past we've been able to get like some pretty good lines and stuff like that going into the first few weeks of August, and we have nothing right now. So I don't know if they're holding back from us or what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I think a lot of states are really like pulling back on like individual prop bets in college sports. So we'll see. If there's more to come before the season kicks off, maybe we'll drop some off in a different episode just to talk about them briefly.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to get all three of us back on next week, and we'll be able to get into our hot takes pod, because that is obviously one of the most fun pods that we do every year, and one of the most prescient pods of the year as well. You do not want to miss that one, because we have had some amazing calls, obviously. So don't miss next week, no matter what you do. Make sure you're here. Join us in the chat by joining the Gridiron Ratings YouTube channel. That way you can actually talk with us while we're talking about our hot takes. Tell us how crazy they are. Tell us how hot, fiery, Diablo, whatever they are, and we'll have a lot of fun next week. Like I said, Andy, we're already late, so I'm not going to ask you for words of wisdom. I'm just going to say we appreciate you guys listening, and we will be back next week. But for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. See you guys.